Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. As I was saying to everyone, I think you all are in for a treat. Ashley is like a PR superstar, especially in the Atlanta area. So yeah, this is our PR Trends in 2023 meeting. I'm Lauren Nye. I'm the president of Kennesaw PRSSA. I'm happy all of you are here. And Ashley, I'm just going to turn it over to you. I know you've got an awesome presentation for us, and we're going to do a little fireside chat kind of thing. So thank you for joining us, and just tell us all about you and what you got for us for Trends.
Yes, I'm ready to rock. Okay, but now I have to get the deck shared, which is going to be the next thing. So I think I just requested permission.
Okay.
For deck sharing. I don't know if that is coming through to you.
Why don't you try again? I just switched to setting on my computer.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I just got that here. All right, all right. Are we seeing?
We are seeing it. Awesome.
Amazing. All right, from beginning. Now I'm going to minimize you so I can see my notes off to the side. And now everyone in the room just became about this big. So I'll say one of the hardest things about being an extroverted person in situations like this is I can't see faces and I can't read reactions in the room. But I'm going to assume that everything is trending well unless I am flagged down to stop. So Lauren, you keep me honest, or I don't know if you're keeping an eye on the chat and anyone wants to jump in, completely flexible there. But like I said, hello, happy Wednesday. It is so great to see everyone. I am Ashley Pilgrim, and I'm a vice president at MSL. And just very briefly, for those of you who may or may not know, MSL is a global communications agency, and our mission is to make every client more influential. I say that full well knowing you are probably very familiar with MSL, since you also had Kristen Ellis earlier this year, who is a PR superstar. And a close colleague and friend. So I added this slide in for fun, which I don't know. I'm more in the camp of like go sports, but for the sake of participating in the March Madness bracket, I did pick Kennesaw State. So, sending good basketball playing vibes out into the universe, and that it doesn't break my bracket, but I've got confidence. So as Lauren said, and I had a good bit of conversation.
Real quick, Ashley, I am so sorry. I don't know if this is intentional, but we are still seeing that first slide.
It's not, and it's been advancing on my side, which is terrible. I told you this was going to be my greatest fear.
Well, we see the slides switching now. So
okay. Oh my goodness, y'all, I had such great slides. Okay. Here you see two pictures of me for my intro.
Yes, I see.
Here, we've got the MSL tagline about influence. It's gonna get better from here. Here is my upvote of confidence in your basketball team. And now, talking about PR trends in 2023.
Awesome.
We're here. We're back. All right. So in talking with Lauren and Christian, was very clear on the ask, PR trends in 2023. But of course, true PR pro style, I asked to re-swizzle a touch what I'm going to talk to y'all about. Which now it looks like you're still seeing the correct slide, right? Thinking differently about digital reputation?
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. So this is one of the most important topics for anyone engaged in communications. And it's promoting and protecting your reputation in a digital world. And for my role at MSL, this is really my sweet spot. So I'm going to talk about how to think differently about digital reputation. So the communications landscape is more dynamic than ever before. Technology is reorganizing communications at warp speed for better and for worse. Honestly, in a way that probably all of y'all know much better than I do. But when I came into this business, PR was largely media relations. And it was working to control the narrative. We used to tell people what we wanted them to hear, when we wanted them to hear it. And we worked mostly through the filter of structured newsrooms with fixed geographic footprints. We could reach a national audience, but I'll tell y'all, going global, or what we now think of as going viral, was nearly impossible. So people say that newsrooms are dying, and that's true in a direct sense. The U.S. has lost, I've got numbers here, y'all, so stay with me. The U.S. has lost almost 1,800 papers since 2004, including more than 60 dailies and 1,700 weeklies. Now, roughly half of the remaining publications in the country are located in small and rural communities, and the vast majority have a circulation of less than 15,000. The dramatic animation. But for every lost newsroom, there are thousands of freshly minted journalists and publishers entering the digital ecosphere daily. Pretty much anyone who carries a smartphone. And their hashtag newsrooms reach billions around the world. Think about Darnella Frazier, who filmed George Floyd's murder and sparked a social movement. Or United Airlines, which flailed in the wake of passengers capturing video of a man brutally hauled off of one of their jets. Or you have McDonald's, when about 1 year ago decided to pull out of Russia after hashtag boycott McDonald's trended on Twitter. News goes global and viral now before traditional media even writes a word. Technology changed PR, not the other way around. And we as communicators used to disseminate information. Now we manage conversations. So over the next little bit, I'm going to highlight 4 communications trends in the state of today's digital world. Number 1 is the power of content. And I want to start here because we live in a content-driven world. I don't think I have to convince anyone here of that. Actually think, in fact, many of us would say that we're drowning in content, yet it's the essential tool of our time. So owning your story, or your client or your brand or your company's story, it starts with your content. If a brand doesn't generate content, or if it doesn't make the right content that's optimized to be discovered and then published through the right channels, it becomes invisible. So when most brands think of their digital presence, their content, they generally do so from their own point of view. And that's understandable, but let's widen the aperture. So over a decade ago, IBM had a content problem. If you searched YouTube for IBM, the top video results were conspiracy theories about IBM's role in human tragedies and in the future of mind control. IBM asked YouTube to take the videos down, but YouTube, per its policy, would not. IBM's content problem wasn't the misleading fever dream videos. Their problem was that they hadn't created much less optimized content that was more interesting, more popular, and more current. IBM had unintentionally, through a lack of action, ceded the digital space to whomever could fill it. So IBM kicked off a comprehensive content creation and optimization initiative, say that 5 times fast, to literally speak for itself, to reclaim their digital shelf space with their own voice. It's something they still do, and something very well, I would add. So moving into trend 2, which is this battle for attention. Every brand is fighting a battle for attention, whether it's email marketing, website content, or social media. The essential element of digital success is breaking through the clutter, making meaningful connections with your audience. So while we can't control the kind of attention we get, we can influence. The question is who, or more specifically, what we need to influence. And the answer is deceptively simple. It's algorithms. So we need to influence how algorithms judge our content, because that judgment defines the order in which users will see content, or if they see it at all. So for our purposes, think of algorithms as coded instructions that attempt to understand a piece of content and then decide how to or whether to present it to a user. If you step back, y'all, almost everything we see digitally is governed by an algorithm, and the best ones use artificial intelligence, hello, anyone following ChatGPT, to keep getting better. So what decides if an email goes in your spam box? An algorithm. What creates search results and the order that they show up in? An algorithm. How does YouTube know what videos suggest to you? Again, an algorithm. You get the picture here. But now here's the rub. No one other than the coders who created it know exactly how a given algorithm works, what elevates it and what depreciates it. So that means all brands, no matter how advanced, play a bit of a guessing game in terms of how to create and, importantly, optimize content so that algorithms will surface it. And since every search engine and every social network has its own algorithm, the task is exponentially greater than just, say, optimizing for Google. So the battle for attention is not just fighting for the consumer's attention. To gain consumers' attention, you first have to win the war with algorithms. And this makes brand content somewhat more complicated. But again, I'll just say here, the battle for attention, it always has to be human first. But again, as we get increasingly sophisticated as comm pros, we're creating content for algorithms. Okay, third slide here is the role of influence. And influence is a powerful word in digital communications, but it has so many connotations that sometimes it's overlooked. This is where, if we were like in person together and I could see everyone larger, I would do like the participatory, like, who thought of social media influencers first when I said the word influence? But assuming that if you were in the digital space, or if you're a super media power user, it's likely the first thing that came to your mind when you heard the word influence is influencer. So influencers, as we know, are content creators who have built an audience on social media. And y'all, that is an enormous task. When you look at how hard it is for many brands to scrape together a social audience, it's even more impressive to think that someone with a ring light, a phone, and a dream can gain millions of followers from scratch. So influencers are a key tool in successful reputation management. And I want to expand on that a little bit because yes, there are so many brand opportunities to engage influencers to talk about products, but it's not always about products when we think about the actual reputation of a company and how you think of what they stand for and what they believe in and what they offer to the world. And influencers, in a way, offer, a picture into that company. They're really these valued third-party voices who build a relationship of trust with their hard-earned audiences, which makes them valuable partners for brands who want to reach those same audiences. So being comfortable with influencers and knowing how to deploy them can do more for changing perceptions of a brand than any traditional advertising campaign. Now, granted, I'm a bit biased by saying that because I am focused on earned communications versus paid advertising. But I do think we have the results and the case studies from working with our clients to back this up as well. But on the flip side, so you've got your promoters, if you will, but on the flip side, there are influencers who are going to be tilting their digital swords against your brand. They may have had a bad experience, they may have a complaint, or they may have found that being a contrarian is the only way that they can grow an audience, which makes them glorified trolls. There are a number of ways to deal with these negative influencers. Ignore them, respond to them, or take them on. But I'll say, as we're stepping back and thinking about how to counsel clients in this environment, there's two things. First is really understanding is something an issue or a crisis, in terms of scaling that response of whether or not, to leave it alone, to address it, or to go toe to toe. But that last one, it's the most tricky, because really you don't want any brand being suckered into a fight. So the bottom line here is that brands need to find their comfort zone with influencers of all sorts, activating those who can help and dealing with those who don't. Because right now, as you've seen, the right response can quell an issue and earn consumer trust. The wrong one can cause a minor tweet to go viral. So looking at 4 of 4 things that I have for you. So we're getting close to the end, which, maybe I'm trending a little bit ahead of my time here. So we'll have a more robust Q&A conversation. But as we're looking at takeaway 4 here, the value of leaning in, many brands do their best to steer away from controversy, seeking a middle of the road position that is perceived to be the safest option. And in the past, that may have been prudent, but the digital age has really changed some of the rules. And there are times when dodging a topic or trying to please everyone blows up into a bigger internet firestorm than taking a position. So with some global brands, they've learned that leaning into issues is actually advantageous. So consider Nike's experience with Colin Kaepernick. Instead of brand suicide, leaning into the kneeling controversy proved to be a sound brand strategy. So the Kaepernick controversy started in 2016 when the then San Francisco 49er kneeled to protest racism during the playing of the national anthem. We all remember it was everywhere. The NFL, so this was really a compare contrast between the NFL's response and Nike's response. The NFL hemmed and hawed about what to do, enacting rules to ban kneeling while not actually enforcing them. They were really doing their best to play both sides, but during this 1 foot in, 1 foot out period, TV ratings, which is going to be one of the top barometers of the NFL's business, dropped. Oppositely, from the outset, Nike leaned into Kaepernick's cause. The brand ignited a firestorm by adding him to their roster of athlete spokespeople, making him the face of their 30th anniversary content and leading with an ad featuring him. And these numbers, I've got more numbers. These are the last numbers. In the days after the first Kaepernick ad, sales jumped 31%. And by the end of the quarter, Nike boasted a 10% increase in revenue and a 7% increase in stock price. I'll tell y'all, these are the types of figures that we dream to connect the dots on as we're looking at having the right conversations of how does communications impact the bottom line. So this is really a terrific case study example here with more pop-ups. So closing out, I just want to recap again. These are 4 trends in the sense that they are pushing communications professionals to really think differently about digital reputation. So there's the power of content and owning your story, whether it, again, is a client, a company, an executive, a brand. Owning your story starts with owning the power of your content. The second thing for battle for attention, while we can't control the kind of information we get, we can influence, and we do that by taking a people-first approach with algorithms in mind. 3 is the role of influence. Being comfortable with influencers and knowing how to deploy them can quickly change your brand perception. And lastly, the value of leaning in. Sometimes a hard moment lets you recast the narrative in a really powerful way. And that is all I have. If I did this correctly, and granted, no one is actually close enough to the screen, I realize, but I did include my, the QR code goes to my LinkedIn profile for anyone who wants to connect. I'm also very easy to find just by searching Ashley Pilgrim in the platform. And now we chat.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. This was such a treat getting to hear from you about PR trends in 2023. And I have to say, personally, I was very excited to hear that you were going to be talking to us about all of this just because of where you stand at MSL and just the wealth of knowledge that you have about PR and the digital space in general. So just thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Can we give Ashley a round of applause, please?
Appreciate y'all. I went way fast through it. I swear when I was blocking it, it felt like it was going to be a full 30 minutes. But again, I'm much more interested in us being able to chat together a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. So I have questions of my own, but just want to hear from y'all first. Y'all have any questions for Ashley? You're welcome to come up and take my spot. Yeah, come on, Cayman. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Oh, you're in the same room as them. I didn't even realize that from the setup. I should have assumed.
Yeah, no, we are. So I can see them and they can see you on a screen and we got the whole work scope. But
amazing.
anyway,
I love it.
sending Cayman to talk to you.
Amen. Also,
Hey.
shout out to you for being the first to ask a question versus me just sitting here awkwardly waiting for one to come.
No worries. So my main question is, you mentioned artificial intelligence. So I heard like really good and bad things about that. Like, where do you think that stands? Like, say like, because I know like sometimes they can, like with the rise of technology, like there's like a lot of bad stuff that can come with it, like impersonation and everything. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. You hit me with a hard one. And okay, I'm going to answer with a disclaimer, which is that we have an entire team at MSL dedicated to digital who would knock this out of the park. And I'm going to do my best effort. You point, I think, situationally, there are positive use cases, but there have also been plenty of examples that have made headlines for the negative ones. So I think to your point, there's a good bit of concern about disclosure, for one. So we know that newsrooms are using AI to write articles, and they have been forthcoming about that. But what level of disclosure is best practice to know whether or not you're reading something that a bot wrote or something that a reporter wrote? So there's the trust and transparency piece that comes from cultivating disclosure. There is also a big ethical question about AI uses in a number of ways, and whether or not there are diversity and equity concerns that are inherently baked into how the technology is coded. And that is a huge complex issue that has to be unpacked in a number of places. I think shifting to some of the positive potential of embedding AI, we were just talking about this actually at the Atlanta office today, because one of our team members dug deep into ChatGPT. I have not tried it. But they are actually like, we're having conversations within Publicis Group, which owns MSL, about how to use some AI tools and how we think about creative. So they are actually modeling scenarios where you can write a brief with AI, that you can code an image with AI, that you can illustrate it with AI, and continue to put things, the right data inputs, right? Because it's, garbage in, garbage out. So it's as much on the human touch of being able to understand how to work with the technology, but they're using it to kind of remove that blank slate. And I'm sure y'all have felt it, like going to write a term paper or something, and you're sitting there looking at a blank screen, like, where do I even start? What if it has the potential for us as communicators to remove that blank slate, to give us a jumping off point and something to work from, so that we're working, smarter, not harder? And so that's where I think it is such a smart question. It is such a loaded one. I think we're going to continue to see certain companies and use cases who are driving the AI conversation elevate. But I think all of the pushes are to make it better.
Okay, thank you.
And I hope that helps. And again, there are digital experts that could do that. They could do a 2-hour presentation on an answer to that question.
Oh no, I check Twitter all the time about it, just because like you hear it left and right, and sometimes I hear like really good things about it, and other times it's like not so great things. But thank you.
Yeah, and there continues to be so much tension in between, is this technology replacing the role of a person? And I think that's, again, you can definitely get into some heated discussions on either side. But to me, it feels additive and like the ability to up-level the tasks that your team would be working on.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
No problem. Anyone else?
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you too.
I love this. Also the shirt.
Oh yeah, me and Cayman are matching today.
It's incredible.
Yes.
If the third person doesn't come up with the shirt on, I'm going to be thrown off.
Yeah, I'm Garrett. It's great meeting you, Ashley. Thank you for speaking with us today. So I wanted to ask something about the topic you brought up of controversies, and specifically with the Nike ad. It sounds like I'm alone in this, because it seems like their profits went up after that, but I'm a bit of a cynic with big companies. And so when I see something like that and there's big outrage, it just seems like it's not very authentic, and maybe it's just motivated primarily off of making profits. And so I was just wondering, what are some like best practices that you would think to use to lean into controversies most successfully?
Yeah, that is a really great question. And I will answer it honestly, because there is a bit of an internal thought process in how we respond to and frame crisis scenarios. So again, whether it's like specific controversy or again, like a general crisis scenario. I mean, one thing we look at internally as communications professionals is every crisis is an opportunity to lead. And I think we have to frame it that way when thinking about how to counsel clients. But what I think is a really best-in-class example of how to thread the needle on something that can have both profit and purpose is it really comes down to aligning the business with its belief system. And so when we are talking to clients about whether or not they should speak out or sit out on any given issue, crisis, or controversy, the biggest guiding framework that we use for driving that conversation with them is, how does it map to your values? And if taking a decided action to, whether it's engage a spokesperson or whether or not to come out with a new product launch or to stop doing something that they're currently doing, we really go back to their corporate values as a principle for decision making. So that would be like the simplest, most succinct answer I could give. And now I want to ask you a question, because I hear you. You're not alone in terms of like whether or not Nike was being a little bit advantageous. And believe me, there's been discussions on both sides for that. I want to ask your reaction when you hear Patagonia.
I suppose I don't have too big of a thought about them. I think I saw something in my class a couple of days ago where they had like this campaign where they were telling people not to buy their products for environmental purposes. So I think that's respectable, but I don't purchase from them typically, so I don't have any opinions.
Totally fair. I would say they're a good use case to look into, because I think in even more of a unified way than perhaps Nike, the company receives a ton of positive accolades for how they approach their ESG and environmental social governance strategies as being just like truly authentic. So to your point, like, what does it mean to have a company that literally sells things to tell you not to buy them as a sustainable play, or their founder gave away an obscene amount of money through a variety of very small local grants? So it's, you know, the huge sum number that you see from others that would be in a similar leadership position, like Bill Gates or Melinda Gates. I'll throw it in there for the ladies. But what I will say is the Patagonia CEO's approach is different in that small local grant access and really going into communities to affect change at a large scale by doing it in really small ongoing steps. So they might be one that maybe resonates with you a little bit more than the Nike example, but fair feedback, and I totally hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Oh, Lauren's not coming to bail me out. There's another one. Amazing.
I don't have the shirt on.
No shirt. That's okay.
I don't have the shirt on.
I don't have the shirt on either.
You mentioned algorithms, and that's been coming up a lot lately in a lot of my classes and with the internship I got for this summer. And this might be a silly question, but how do you like learn algorithms? Is it just from practice? Is it SEO? Like, what should you dedicate time to learn more about that?
That is, again, another great question. I'm getting repetitive. That's also like my buffer while my brain starts going like this to give you a good answer. So for algorithms, again, it is one of those things where like, I wish that these social media platforms, excuse me, were more transparent in how they change things.
Yeah.
Some are more so than others. So I do think like one of the best things that you can do to get smart on this topic for algorithms or like any topic is I use Google News alerts like crazy. I have always found that it's most helpful rather than like going and seeking out information, because sometimes you don't even know what to search for if you don't know what you're trying to find. It's use some Google alerts and set up the type of information that you want fed to you around, you know, algorithms and, you know, some social channels that you're focused in. I will say for Google specifically, as a search engine, they are much more robust in terms of training that they offer. So people will get certified in various aspects of Google. And I think, again, they're a little bit more forthcoming on what their changes are when they're coming, what the timelines are. But again, if you think about content, let's say you want to communicate one message on, I'm speaking to Kennesaw PRSSA, that's like my main message. But how I would put that and optimize it for blog posts to be discovered on Google becomes completely different than how I would optimize it on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. So again, I wish I had like a silver bullet of like, go do this class and it'll teach you everything that you know. But I think because the pace of this is evolving so quickly, setting up some alerts so content's being filtered to you. Also, any of the technology publications are usually pretty good at going into some of this stuff, like a PC Mag. So there's certainly some media outlets that geek out on this type of reporting a little bit.
Okay.
Keep me honest. I have a question. What type of digital courses are offered through your curriculum currently? Like, is that something that's coming up at all in framing content?
I haven't been like given any algorithm specific things. That's why I was asking. Like, people mention it in my classes and they're like, yeah, you want to learn the algorithm, and then that's it. And then it's like, okay, but what is that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Sure. But what algorithm and for what purposes? And no, it's really interesting. And I do think, again, because it's evolving so fast, it's one of those things that is like a continued learning journey versus mastering it one and done, because just when you think like you've optimized, something will change. I will say, and now when I'm thinking on this a little bit more, like, there's some of our client programs where we do LinkedIn for brands and executives. They have started to share out within their content influencer circle a little bit of a snapshot of like, what are the top hashtags that they did their own measurement within their algorithm to kind of shed some light on what are they prioritizing and upvoting or downvoting in terms of content performance. But that's obviously just like a very small slice of everything that you could do to optimize content there.
Okay. Thank you.
They're keeping it a secret and a bit intentionally, but we'll continue to work to crack the code.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Coming, Ashley.
Amazing. No, I see it. No one wanted to take the front row seat. I get it. There's my friend Christian.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. We really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for having me. Again, I'll kick myself for going too fast.
No worries at all. So my question kind of has to do with like brand, like tone and like personality in terms of trends. Because I know that obviously now there's a lot of like companies and like bigger organizations that are using like a very much more personal tone in their like social media and in their branding in general. So I guess like how do like you see that like where do you see that going moving forward, and like what are like tips that like y'all use or you see other people use in terms of like leveraging like both sides of the coin, I guess? So
yeah, this is actually something that I've been discussing with one of my clients, first internally with like some really solid debate as a team, and then bringing it in front of them for consideration, because we said to ourselves, like, we want to take one of their press releases and just rewrite it for them as a secret bonus project to send back to them and be like, hey, if you really wanted to talk the way people talk, this is what your announcement would look like. Because to your point, and I think there are some differences in whether or not you are in corporate communications or in brand communications. So I think brands are certainly leading the pack on stuff like this. Think of any QSR brands like an Arby's or a Wendy's. Like, they have such an established tone of voice that feels much more human, much more personal, and like really reflects the spirit of their brand that like you get and it's authentic. I think where it gets stickier is when you get into enterprise company situations where they're especially legacy brands that have done something one way for a while and are also needing to appeal to a variety of stakeholders. So they're writing content that can be accessed by consumers, by media, by investors, by shareholders, by the analyst community. And when companies are in that environment, I do think there tends to be a legacy mentality of writing with a lot of corporate jargon. We're leveraging the size and scale of our operations to deliver real impact. You're cleaning water reservoirs in 10 communities where you operate. Like, it's that push to saying what you're doing. So I will say that is a shift that you are rightfully seeing and experiencing. And meanwhile, folks like us behind the scenes are having that conversation with clients to push them into a more conversational tone. And I think you can even just go back to most, national media publications are writing at a middle school level in terms of like meeting the base of their audiences. So how can we take out some of the complexity in communication? Yeah. And I hope that answers your question. And it's like in some, you're right, it's shifting. But it looks different for every company depending on their target audiences on how far you can push the needle on that.
Okay, that's really helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Y'all feel free to stop me, okay? Y'all have a question, y'all can run up at any time, okay? Hi, Ashley.
He's back. Take over.
I am back. Okay, so I really think I have a lot of questions that I'm just trying to filter through right now. Like, which one do I want to bring up right now? But okay, let's talk social platforms. So as I understand it, social is just so important right now. And it's been that way, I think, for not just 23. It's been that way for a while. So let's talk about what you feel is the most, if you had to pick one, the most powerful platform and why. And I know that, platforms are used for different purposes, but if you had to pick one platform that you feel is the most powerful, what platform and why?
I have a quick answer for this, y'all. I have a strong bias towards LinkedIn. A lot of that is because a core focus of shaping corporate communications is shaping communications for executives. And where that is playing out on LinkedIn, given the audience, right? It is the world's largest professional network, but there are some exciting shifts in terms of how people are sharing content there. So when I think of LinkedIn, it is equal parts social network for business connections. And LinkedIn and a number of other companies have the data that shows that it can foster the types of connections that result in employee engagement and retention numbers, including recruitment, that business deals are made there and partnerships. And there are even some connections in terms of, again, comms goals and business goals. But what I have a bias toward LinkedIn for that I think they are doing in a more formalized way that other platforms have been flailing to figure out is having a reputable editorial engine. So I don't know if y'all are like tuned in or using LinkedIn this way, but they have a robust editorial team that has the same structure and operations. Okay, head nods, I don't have to convince you. And I'm tight in with them, they're great people. But they are turning out relevant content, and I can like read my daily LinkedIn news brief, and I can read my Wall Street Journal, New York Times, my Fortune, pick your publication news brief, and see the overlap in what is being covered. So they're hitting on the topics of priority, but they are really committed to bringing through the executive voice and how they're lensing all of that. And so strong bias for LinkedIn. I only personally keep up with 2 channels. I keep up with LinkedIn for professional purposes, and I keep up with Instagram for personal ones, and that's about it for me. So also, if anyone tells you that you have to use social media to have a career in social media, no, you don't. You can go in and do it for your job and do it well that way. So for all of the aforementioned reasons, LinkedIn for me, Lauren.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate that. And just because I'm curious, I kind of want to know, like, student view versus professional view. What do y'all feel?
Yes.
Yeah, what do y'all feel is the most important platform? Yeah. Twitter. Okay.
Wait, I need whoever said Twitter to come up and convince me. Twitter is having a hard time right now. Musk is doing some things. Is it for getting news?
No, come on, what? Talk to Ashley. Talk to Ashley through us, and I'm interested. Okay.
And not because I'm challenging you. I'm not challenging you at all. I'm truly curious for your perspective.
I just like feel like it's like a really quick way to communicate with like a general audience, but then I haven't been on Twitter personally in like forever. So I was after this whole entire like, well, honestly, after this meeting, I was just gonna like switch over to Twitter and just like look over that because I'm on Instagram for like most of my news, and every single time I go on there,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. I feel like it's just not like the best news. Like I feel like LinkedIn has more reliable sources in a way.
I agree with you on that. No, well, and one thing I will say about Twitter that is interesting, and it's a little bit of a double-edged sword as I sit here bad-mouthing Twitter. But at the same time, when we're talking about not just algorithms, but now APIs, and essentially whether or not the social platforms are open source in such a way that other things can stick into them for measurement, no one is very open about doing that beyond Twitter. So when we talk to clients and we're doing measurement or conversation analysis and they want to know what is trending in the social conversation, we end up using Twitter as a proxy to model the whole social ecosphere, but obviously that is only one slice. So a lot of what we end up doing is quantitative analysis with Twitter paired with qualitative analysis of other channels that are not letting us go in and scrape information in the same way to turn out like quick, true, meaningful, hey, how has this shifted over the past year type of requests that we get from clients. So Twitter is great for measurement in that regard too. And we hear that journalists are still using it to find sources and to report stories. So that's another reason why it's, you can't fully quit Twitter.
Okay. Wait, so how would you like kind of rank all like, would you just rank LinkedIn number 1, Twitter number 2, and then down the line like that? Or
it's a loaded question because I do think a lot of it is going to depend on the audience and the goals of what you're trying to do. Like if you're a brand who wants to move a product, TikTok influencers are blowing that out of the water. Like one of our clients is Invisalign and they partnered with Farley D'Amelio for a campaign. And like, it was literally mentioned in their earnings report for how it drove sales. Like it's actually bananas. But again, if you're trying to position yourself as an agenda setting CEO moving markets, you're going to be on LinkedIn. So I could do like the personal top breakdown, but like for the business strategy ranking, it's going to vary so drastically by your client and their goals.
okay. Anyone else have their thoughts?
I saw something in the chat, and Zari, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but I saw in here, do you think the shift in PR trends, i.e. being authentic or personable as a brand, has changed leadership as well? And I love this question. And again, I've got a strong answer with it, which is undoubtedly yes. And one of the most fascinating terms I recently learned was the LinkedIn cringe. If I can if I can multitask well enough to like speak and hunt down this link at the same time, I will. There's a fascinating Fortune article on this, and it's essentially monitoring the shift of how leaders are presenting and sharing information and where that line between professional and personal have so completely melded together. In some ways that is really positive, and I think the stat in the article is like a 30% increase engagement that they've seen on the platform. But the LinkedIn cringe piece comes in with like, I don't know if y'all saw the crying CEO that went viral for like talking about firing his employees, and it felt like he was like completely victimized in the situation, even though he as the CEO is responsible for making the types of business decisions that provide gainful employment for his employees. And it's almost like, in some cases, is it shifting to personal? And I think that's something that when we are partnering with an executive for a company or a brand, it's really tailored and shaped by each individual. So we're finding that right balance between personal passions, business priorities, and external relevance. So yeah, I think it absolutely has changed the stakes and expectations for leadership.
Wonderful. Zara, I hope that answered your question. For anyone else on Zoom, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. I will say we have time for about one more question, and then we'll do a group picture. But anyone else have a question? I would hate to be the final question, so I would love to give that spot to one of you.
Someone wants it.
I know. Okay. So, Ashley, this is very typical, I suppose, of a student to professional type of chat. But seriously, what is the best piece of advice you could give for emerging PR professionals in this landscape in 2023?
So Lauren, you asked the question that was part of my prep sheet, which would suggest that I was completely prepared for it. But what it in fact suggests is that I looked at that so often and I thought to myself, what is something that I can bring in and share that wouldn't have already been heard, 20,000 times? Get an internship, reach out and make connections on LinkedIn, ask for a coffee chat. And I don't know if I have anything truly new, novel, or interesting aside for two things, which you can rank me on whether or not they're good or not. I'm open to feedback. My first thing is read the news. Wherever you get it from, I know we were talking about getting news on LinkedIn versus Instagram, but I'm not expecting you to pick up a print copy of a newspaper. I am not that elderly and removed from reality, but subscribe to morning briefs. I'm sure you're getting like the Skim, the Hustle, Quartz, but like read the Fortune leadership brief. Read, I'm trying to think of other ones that I love and they all just escape me. Timed is a beautiful profile every Sunday, but like, I think one of the best ways to position yourself in this market is to be well read up on the news, because it will fuel, one, the conversations that you can have, whether or not it's someone that you run into at a conference and you see their name tag and you're like, I absolutely love that company and I want to talk to this person. It gives you a spark for conversation to know what was in headlines that morning when you're searching for like, what do we talk about? When you're in a job interview, it gives you fodder for conversation. And then once you actually land the role, you will use that to counsel your clients, because if we're trying to influence the news, we need to read the news. So that's one thing that's like less traditional, more long lead, but I think will give you the power to shape those conversations as you go through various stages. And my other thing, which I don't know, I don't think it's novel, it's not, but I have seen a return of more agency visits. And I feel like some of the things that were put on pause with the pandemic, since like literally going to an agency or going into a company and bringing like a small group of 10 people for an hour feels very 2019. But at MSL, we're like really getting back to them. And it's something that we as a company have a ton of appetite for. And I know from either being at other large scale agencies or having friends there, like that type of ask is typically well received. So I think that's another wonderful way to get your foot in the door, especially if you are a freshman or sophomore, where I think internships are increasingly harder to come by because we're all looking for people that we can hire full time. That gives you a reason to like get in the door, make a contact, and stay connected. So when that runway and that time comes, you're already dialed in. So I don't know, Lauren, this is where you ranked me. Did I share anything new?
No, you did. Honestly, I haven't heard those two pieces. If I have heard them, it's been a while. So, and I've been I've been in this organization since I was a freshman. So like I said, I think that definitely added a breath of fresh air to all of our meetings that we've had this semester and this year, in fact. So thank you so much for bringing those really well thought out, candid responses. I so appreciate it. And this has been an incredible meeting. Have y'all enjoyed the conversation? Because I know I have, and I hope you have too, Ashley.
Oh, this is fantastic. I've been looking forward to this. I'll use this like moment to reinforce what I said over email. Like the professionalism from getting from the initial email to being here today was outstanding. I think y'all just continue to knock it out of the park with your speakers bureau and your presence at industry events and all of the things that you have put together. I am admittedly a UGA alum, and I'm kind of looking at our sweet Drury chapter of PRSSA, thinking that they could get some tips here.
Oh my goodness, that's funny that you say that. We actually we partnered with UGA for our district conference back in February. So we're definitely learning from each other and maintaining a relationship between our chapters. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, thanks y'all. I'm truly an open book too. I've already told you that I spend an excessive amount of time on LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to connect there, please do. It is a place where I always share when we have internship openings and things like that happening at the agency. So it's a way to like keep a soft touch and monitor there, but truly happy to be a resource.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ashley. Well, at this time, why don't we have everyone come up? And Ashley, we're going to do a picture in the room and your face is on the screen. So how this normally works is people get in front of the screen, we'll have you smile through your camera, and then we'll take a picture out here. Does that work for you?
Okay, that's amazing. Here's what I'm going to do though. I don't even know, first off, I don't know why this angel iconography is affiliated with my phone. Never set that up. But I want to hang up my phone so you're not seeing that in the photo, but that means I'll lose being able to hear you.
Oh, the icons at the top? Well,
or no, are you're taking like a screenshot of the Zoom recording, right?
Well,
I'm probably, whatever you want me to do. I'm interpreting this wrong.
no worries. Okay. Well, okay, I understand. Here, I'll put the phone thing in the waiting room, maybe, and maybe that'll work.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait, Ashley, say something.
Hello.
We can still hear you even with the phone icon being in the waiting room. So
amazing. Well, sorry y'all had to look at that tiny little thing the whole time. Again,
no,
I don't know where that came from.
You're fine. It's cute. All right, y'all, let's come up in front of the screen. Oh, yes. Sure. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Do we want to go back to gallery here? Or speaker view? What is it? Gallery? Okay. Okay. All right. Actually, I'm gonna pop off on this side, but you'll hear like 3, 2, 1, Kennesaw PRSSA. So
okay. Got it. I'll just keep smiling.
Three's in front. On this side, bring it in. There we go. Fantastic. All right. 1, 2, 3. PRSSA. Perfect. Thank you.
we gotta work on our enthusiasm, you guys. Oh my gosh. All right, Ashley, thank you so much for being such a good sport about the pictures, but this has just been an incredible conversation, and I hope you enjoy getting to interact with a few different members of Kennesaw PRSSA, so thank you.
It was amazing. Happy Wednesday, y'all, and have a great evening.
Thanks, you too, Ashley. Bye.